Welcome to the Potion Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. This week's episode is proudly sponsored by Bar Green Ellington for all your restaurant and bar needs. Visit bargreen.com for the full portfolio. Thanks everybody for coming. Nice little turnout. Some fresh faces here that haven't come to a couple of seminars for a while. Today's a little bit interesting. Michael reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and was like, we're going to do something for world-class planning for 2022 in Victoria. Can we do some of their clives? And I always like to try and get whenever these guys are in town to come down and talk to a lot of young bartenders, because I think world-class is one of those competitions that is super daunting and a lot for people to absorb and process and figure out how to do it. Mikey, you've done world-class. Who else has done world-class last year? Raven did, right? World-class. So you and Raven in the room. So you guys know what regionals are like. So we're going to get into it. I don't want to take too long. I know I'm recording a podcast right now and that sort of thing, but I can't take up. I got to make these. I got to make hay when the sun shines. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep it to about half hour, 45 minutes, my questions, and then open the floor to you guys to ask questions as well. So when it comes time for questions, when you say them, I'm going to repeat them so they're on nice and crisp, and then whoever has to answer answers. And are you set up? Michael, you can't drink water for the rest of the... okay. We cannot screw up the TikTok live stream. I really regret not bringing my gimbal now. So what we're going to do is let's go around the table and introduce everybody. Starting with you, Grant.
I'm introducing myself.
Yep.
Who else would you introduce? Oh, Kate, maybe. Okay. Hi guys, my name is Grant Sceney. For those who don't know me in the room, I know a few faces here. I think I'm the oldest to compete in this comp, not the oldest by age, but I competed first in 2014. That's the second year World Class came, or Canada was able to enter it, and I placed fourth overall here in the UK. That's it. Now on to Kate.
What's up? It's nice to see some familiar faces. I know we've come to Victoria a couple times now since I've been a part of like the World Class crew. But I competed in 2017, which seems like a lifetime ago now. Sheesh. In Mexico City, and I ended up winning Mexico City, putting our Canada on the map, and was freaking great. But yeah, so nice to be here. That's it. That's all I got.
Well done. Close? Yep, that's all I got.
That's perfect.
Just a global champ. That's all I got.
Hi everyone, my name's Michael Armistead. I run World Class Canada. I've been running this for about 6 years now. It's been a lot of fun. Every year we try and make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting. And today we're going to convince a few more of you to compete this year. And you never know, Shawn, maybe we'll get you to compete again.
Competing again. I'll come back. I'm not competing again. Mr. Enns.
Hey, I think I know a lot of people in the room as well. Chris Enns, I competed in 2018, and I went to Globals in Berlin, finished 8th as well. Yeah, right in the middle of the pack, I guess, from the newest to oldest. That's all I have.
Mr. James Grant.
Hi, hello. A few friends here, but a lot of like fresh faces, which is exciting. I'm James Grant. I am the most recent World Class Canada winner, and I am the most recent global winner, which is fun. I represented Canada in the 2021 virtual finals. So,
did they hold them anywhere? Was the virtual finals like held in a base, or was it just completely virtual?
It was
Technically London.
based out of London, and we had a few guys in Toronto. We based ourselves at the Ritz Hotel in Toronto for 9 days. I wanted to make it. I wanted to make it as close to a proper global final as possible, and make sure that James in particular got the global final experience.
so much wine about it.
Still do wine about it.
He had a spectacular room.
And the unluckiest winner, Jeffrey Savage, the one that won just before everything went to shit.
Yeah, that's me. Hello. I won World Class Canada in 2019 and went on to place second globally, which was really great. I mean,
compared to a couple of winners here, it's okay. But thank you. But I do get to say that I was the world's best male presenting bartender, I guess, and only person here that's had a bunch of years. Just saying.
So you guys aren't competitive at all amongst each other.
No.
And I'm going to keep going around the table. We'll go from Jeff back to Grant this time. What got you started going for world class? What was the fire that got you going? You know what, I want to do that competition.
Sure, yeah. Well, I had entered in a few times. I had won it on my third time, I suppose. And I guess for me, it was just being able to see the passion and the fire behind the eyes of people who were in it. I entered in 2017, and so getting to see people's Instagram posts, Grant, MF Sceney, we'll call it, and Lauren as well, and just seeing that and going through and watching Shane and just seeing just how cool it was to present yourself on the world stage, because it felt less about a cocktail at that point. It felt just about personal development and personal growth. So I guess for me was just to see the road that was paved ahead already, and then just to be excited to showcase what I love.
Mr. James, right?
Same question.
Yeah, same question.
Oh, okay.
I want to get everybody's perspective.
Sure, that makes sense. I remember first being aware of world class because there were a few bartenders in the local community in Edmonton that had been involved, either having gone to the national finals or the regionals. Hearing them talk about it was, pretty impressive to hear, the level that you can take bartending to, and then, wanting to take a crack at it myself. I went to the 2017 regionals where I met Kait. You didn't do
Not 17.
No, yeah. So I actually set up on a prep station next to Kait and realized very quickly that I was really out of my depth. Did quite badly, but realized that I had developed quite a lot. I pushed myself to grow, and I recognized that over the next year and kind of challenged myself to go back and do it again, rather than leave my story with world class being one of kind of being overwhelmed and doing poorly. I wanted to go back and change that narrative for myself, at least. So every year I challenge myself to go back and improve more and more until I eventually won it.
And Chris, we competed together in nationals in 2018.
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
Chris and Mike.
My first interaction with world class would have been in 2013 at the World Class House at Tails. Just seeing the people that had aligned themselves with the program, leaders in the industry. It was something that I knew I wanted to associate with to both learn and progress in my career as well. Just kind of something that I felt you could take pride in with the level of professionalism. 2016, the first time I had competed, Shane Mulvaney's year, and that was an eye-opening experience into the level of competition, both in how to present, but also, in how it develops yourself and how to, conduct yourself in those kind of situations. 2017, I didn't make the cut, so that was a good learning experience as well. And then 2018 was another successful try. It's always something I felt was a really good community, both for individuals competing or for any of the studio programs that World Class puts on. And something that I knew if I wanted to continue this road professionally, I really wanted to align myself with.
Michael, how do you go here?
I got questions for you, Michael. Don't worry.
Are we skipping me?
We're skipping you.
Okay.
For me, I guess 2017 was the first time I entered world class, and I was like, thank God. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of useful work. You gain a lot after even competing once and going through each kind of step and stage. You come out a better bartender, even if you don't make it to the very end. I've seen, now being the second oldest winner on the team, seeing Chris go through his year and Jeff and James, but seeing James go through it the last couple of years and just watching his growth from the first time he entered the same year that we were in it together in 2017. So like where he went this year was like awesome. It was really, really great to see. But for me, I entered kind of more as like a personal, like, I don't know, it was a personal thing. I wanted to see where I was at amongst my peers. I just wanted to see where my level was. I was feeling a little bit stagnant, so I wanted to challenge myself and step outside of my comfort zone. So for me, I was like, well, how can I challenge myself? And I was like, well, I guess the biggest challenge is world class. I mean, it's known as like the world's best bartending competition for a reason. So it's like, this is my ultimate challenge. And I kind of went into it naive, but I think that was a big bonus and a positive because I really let myself be 100% myself. I didn't feel intimidated by, you know, the dauntingness of like all of the accolades the past winners had and like all these amazing judges. Of course, I knew who the majority of them were, but I didn't really let it like really sink into my head. But yeah, so it's definitely a personal growth thing for me when I jumped into it myself, and I've just grown so much even from 2017 until like now. It's a great process. It's such a great school all the way through.
Grant is easy. He's Australian and wants to be the best at everything.
Next. No, that is quite true. And when I entered in the first year, because I entered the first year, I came to Canada, and having known probably what it involved, I probably wouldn't have. To be honest, I had no idea what that was 8 years ago now. So I was a pup back then. And I just heard of this comp, and I thought, oh, I'd won my first 1 or 2 local ones where you just had to make 1 drink and put it up. And I thought, I can try this. And then I got the book, and I had to make 12 drinks. Like, oh, no, what have I bitten off here? And it was in Toronto that year, and I went through it, placing 3rd. I was the only person from the West Coast to make the top 10 that year. And it taught me so much going through the process of learning that after I walked out of that room, I was so happy. Gen 1 that year, obviously, I was like, I'm going to win this competition next year. And I dedicated everything that I did that year to learning how to make myself a better bartender, because being around people that tried so hard, they knew a lot more in some areas. And I tried to learn if I saw a technique, I would try and learn a technique that I saw someone else do. And I pretty much spent a year practicing up until the next year. So that was it. And as I said, it's so rewarding. I've been in this program for 8 years now. I'm still here. So it's taught me lots of need to go around all these people as well.
So this is for everybody, including Michael, so I don't want to feel left out this time around. Outside of winning, what gave you the best feeling during the competition? And I'll start with you.
All right. Outside of winning? Whew.
Well, because I've talked to James in the past, I've talked to Jeff, and the camaraderie you guys do during the international stage, and Kait has the great story about, like, you go to bed, we're going to do the prep for you.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a question for Michael later on, but like outside of winning, what gave you the best feeling during the competition?
I thought actually discovering a lot more about myself than I knew. I didn't think I was capable of doing half the things that I was able to pull off. I never thought that I would be bartending on the River Thames and serving my dad cocktails in London, surrounded by the best bartenders in the world at the age of 25, wherever it was. So for me, it was a huge growth experience, and I still got shivers thinking back to that and how much I learned at my age, and how much it taught me life skills, really. So that was me, best thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just the growth of community. I didn't really know a lot of people in the cocktail community, really even in like Vancouver at the time, let alone like across Canada. And then getting into the competition and just like getting to know other bartenders like from your city that you're in. And, you know, we all work the same hours, so it's not like we can go and like hang out at each other's bars and get together and all that often. So for me, it was like just, you know, the experience of like meeting other people and then meeting people from like the East Coast and just forming friendships that I still have like to this day. So that's like, I took that away from it in just growing the community. And like, it was crazy going to globals. You have people like changing their like Facebook pictures to a picture of your face, and you don't realize like how many people are actually like really rallying behind you. And it's like, damn, we have like a really cool, like close cocktail community in Canada. It's like, you really saw it. And it was like a little bit more pressure on your back because you're like, damn, I'm not just doing this for myself now. But it was the most rewarding to really like, showcase Canada in like a bigger way.
And so for you, Michael, like this is going to be the same thing outside of winning. Like you're invested, but in a completely different way.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Yeah, you're invested in a completely different way than the competitors.
Yeah, so I mean, doing this for 6 years is it's the longest job I've ever had, the longest single role I've ever had. And as far as Diageo is concerned, to see them running a program globally for 12, 13 years is huge. So Diageo is heavily invested globally in this, and heavily invested in the bartending community. So for me, it's brilliant to be able to see how, not just because of world class, because of all sorts of things, but I think we've played a small part in hopefully bringing the bartending community along a little bit over the past several years. So many highlights. Finishing every global competition is like a highlight for me because so much goes into the planning of it. I mean, the reason we're here in Victoria is to plan the schedule for the year. And we've pretty much nailed it. The competition, the challenges, the studio tours, everything that we're going to do this year is pretty much drafted out today. And it's really cool to get everybody in the room together to do that and have a role in that. I don't think any other country does that.
Mm-hmm.
So the sense of community and family for the team is really huge. And hopefully that shows. But probably the one highlight, Kait winning was pretty cool.
Sorry, James.
Well, there's so many. I mean, finishing at the top, like running the event at Whistler. I figured there'd never be anything I would do that would be harder than that. We ran that competition in 14 different locations, including taking the show to the top of the hill. And it was pretty daunting, and it could have gone wrong in so many different ways. And each year, like, I spent so many sleepless nights thinking about this for months before. This year is going to be pretty spectacular, I can tell you now.
I got a question coming up for you. So, Chris, for you, outside of winning, what gave you the best feeling during the competition?
I mean, outside of winning, but I guess it kind of relates. Having the chance to, on that global stage, represent your country, I think it's pretty cool to, honestly, for like my family to know that. I thought that was, something that made me feel good that they are, happy and proud of that. It's a very cool opportunity for anyone to do whatever they enjoy, to do it at that level. Also, what I really enjoyed would have been bar backing for Mr. Savage here. So having the next competitor perform the best that they can is also a rewarding kind of task.
And you killed it.
And obviously the James Grant wrestling montage for the 2018 Top 4 speed round was pretty fucking epic as well. James?
There's kind of two things that are really tied for me. Like the first is that, year after year, there's a lot of reasons that like bring you back to the competition. And like for me, one of the things that, as much as like pushing myself to grow and develop, like one of the things that like brought me back year after year was this sense in my own brain to try and like need to prove like, people around me like wrong about like certain things or right, and finishing at the end and realizing that like all of those things that had been at the back of my head, like those anxieties and those like doubts and stuff, like I'd finally like overcome that, and it like didn't matter. I was like, all of that stuff is like so far in the past, and like realizing that I, with the help of the team, like brought myself there was like pretty wonderful. And the other thing is like, I think something that like everyone can attest to, which is like the connections that you make with like bartenders, both like at the national level, like the friendships you make, but also like internationally. Like, at one point they were announcing the challenge winners at the global final this year, and I was in a group chat with like a couple of the bartenders that I bonded with, and as they're like calling me live, like we're all chatting with each other, and we were so supportive of one another. And it was, those are still friends that I made over the course of that competition that I still speak to like every day, and we've never actually met. Like I think that when you go through something really, really difficult and hard like that, you form these very, very strong friendships that are quite long lasting. That's really wonderful.
I just wanted a follow-up question before we go to Jeff on that one. Do you think that something to do with those sort of anxieties that you were talking about is coming from a smaller city market? Like everybody on the panel today is all from Vancouver or Toronto. Obviously, Michael from Toronto, everywhere is from Vancouver. So I feel like the market's a little bit more mature. little bit deeper. Like I love Edmonton, you know how much I love Edmonton, but for these guys, especially being from Victoria, a smaller market, you know, you have those personal anxieties like, am I good enough because I'm great in Victoria, but am I going to be great in the regionals for the West or the nationals in the East?
Sure, I think that's something that like Jeff and I, both being Prairie boys, have talked about a lot. That like, you know, you
Of course, sorry Jeff, you're a Vancouver boy now, but you're from Calgary originally.
There is a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that kind of
Saskatoon.
imposter syndrome. But I think all across Canada we deal with that. Like Canada's not a huge market, but you know, it's a very kind of supportive community and a very raw style of hospitality that comes very honestly, and I think we represent that, you know, very earnestly and openly on the global stage, and I think that's been proven to be a hallmark of our style of hospitality and has done well for us. So, you know, sure, there's that imposter syndrome, but we have that nationally, and it just drives us to be stronger bartenders.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't think that way. Because if you pigeonhole yourself as like a small town bartender, you know, it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you come from like, you know, a town with 100 people in it. If you have the skill of hospitality, of being able to host somebody, to make them feel welcome, to like, I mean, you can make a balanced drink. You might not have the same like machinery as, you know, the top bars in London where you've got like a rotobap, like you're at beck and call and all this other stuff. But if you can like focus on what you do best, I think like everybody sitting here can attest to, like, we're all very different styles of bartenders, but we all have something in common, is that we put the guest first and we put like that in the forefront. So no matter if you come from Victoria, if you're from Nanaimo, if you're from Tofino, like, you know, even smaller markets that, oh yeah, you can't think about that, or you're gonna like doubt yourself times 100 when you're like, no, I just need to show up and be me, and if I learn something off of it, then great. You know, like,
I love that.
You've got to do it.
Well, and Kate, you and Jeff brought something up like as we were prepping for the global finals this year, where that kind of that sense of being from a smaller market, that almost like insecurity and that drive, it stops being an anxiety and it becomes like a benefit because you're the only Canadian bartender there. You can't be too Canadian.
Yeah.
Like you can go all in on that like identity.
Maple syrup, everything.
For sure. But it's like, but it really like those insecurities and that honest like hospitality, like
It can
you
be
are
a
now
tool.
it is a tool, absolutely. Yeah. It helps set you apart, or sets most of us apart.
We kept saying in Glasgow, like Canadians are like well known for the humble brag. You know, it's like, I'm really good at this, but I won't tell you. Just find that out later, I suppose.
Yeah.
So Michael was saying that sorry Michael, you go.
I was just going to say, at every global final now, everybody's coming to see who the Canadian competitors, not just other competitors, but all of the global team, all of the judges, media, everybody's coming out to see what's going on in Canada.
That's a really good segue to my next question, but I want to get Jeff's thing about winning, because as Michael said, Whistler was 14 locations, top of the mountain, gondola rides, the whole shebang, as the national winner for 2019. What was outside of the winning?
Well, I know it's a lot of work, Michael, but the right result came out. So
James might disagree with
well, maybe.
That's not a humble brag.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Canada, we can brag here. I think everybody's hit the nail on the head when it comes to the kind of feelings and sentiment about it. So I'll just give you a couple like really fun moments. I think there's three that really stick out. I'll be quick. But the first one, I think like most people in this room, if you compete, it's not your job. Like, you have a job that you go to, and I was running a very busy, very big cocktail program and doing this on the side, going through globals, and it was a lot. Like, it was a lot, and I basically would sleep like 4 hours a day kind of thing. And I just remember like the last week of getting ready and just feeling so underprepared and so overprepared at the same time, and like walking home at like 7 a.m. after not sleeping the whole time was like, it's something that like really reminds me of just how much what you like. If you do what you love, it's not that you're not going to work a day in your life. You're going to work all the time because you love it. And it was a good reminder of that. Another one was at the end when Danny was announced. I thought it was really fun to have some of these like global, like well-known bar personalities like rooting for you. Michael and Chris, I know you guys were like right there, but like Enrique de la Colsa was the master distiller from Don Julio, thank you. And what is it called? And Lorena from Zacapa, they had like a side bet going on like who between Danny and I was gonna win, and the loser had to like drink a fair amount of the like winner's product.
Yeah.
So Enrique ended up drinking a fair amount of rum, and he came up to me and he's like, "You made me drunk," and like just gave me a big bear hug, and that was like really lovely. But I think like the last thing that I'll say about it is that I really loved was one of the challenges that I got to compete in, and actually ended up winning that challenge was the Singleton State of Mind. And I can be honest in saying like my entire inspiration, my entire reason for that one was you guys, all of you. Like it was a love letter to Canadian bartenders, and to like be able to showcase that on the global stage and to be able to win it was really meaningful. And to like to bring that kind of warmth and love back to like the Canadian community that has done so well for me was a really meaningful moment. So yeah.
So this segues back to Michael, because Michael and I have chatted about, and I've chatted to a lot of you guys about why Canada's as formidable as it is. You were saying, like, when you guys show up to the globals, they're like, okay, judges have to come over and say, who the hell's in? Are any other countries trying to replicate what the Canadian team is doing? Because it's obviously working. Like,
Yeah.
working, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, literally top 10s almost across the board, like internationally. 2 international winners in the last 5 years.
And a second place.
Thanks.
I think we're the highest ranking country globally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what makes, is it this camaraderie, this sort of, do other countries, because I don't obviously know about the internationals, do other countries bring past winners with them to the event to help and to like,
I don't think to the
engage?
scale that we are. I mean, obviously past global winners are part of the team each time as well. So, I mean, I'm not sure. All I know is like Dennis Towns, who's the global distillery relationship director for Kettle One. He always says, "I wish all the other countries would do what Canada are doing, and develop this kind of team spirit." So yeah, hopefully we're doing something right. I think we're doing something right.
I think so. I think honestly, it's a lot to do with how Michael set this up, but it's also like I think that we all view it outside of the competition as well, which I think is really important too.
And it's not just this team. There's a much bigger team. Colin's here, who does our photography and videography. He's been part of the team for what, 4 years, 5 years? And then, the breakthrough team, the whole reserve team. There's so many people involved in it that, it takes a village, definitely.
I absolutely, firmly believe that I could not have won the global final this year without the assistance of, the team that I had.
Hugo and...
it was Hugo, Colin, Kate, Jeff, just having people there, not only to, brainstorm with, but to tell me no, or to tell me what to
You're gonna want to rethink that one, Jay. Are you sure? Yes.
No. But even for you guys, just to be you go walk, go
take a
away
breather.
for half an hour and then come back to it fresh. It was really wonderful to have a team around you, a family who's there to see you succeed.
You almost feel like you have an unfair advantage going into a global final, especially because for my year I had Shane as my right hand man because he was the winner the year before. Grant fandangled his way onto the trip as well, so I kind of had 2 behind me, which was awesome. And same with Chris and everybody kind of had that person there to help them out. And it's you see some of the other countries and some of the people, because everybody gets to bring one helper, and you see some of the other countries and their helper is a brand ambassador, but a brand ambassador who's actually never bartended before. So they don't know how to, if I'm yo, Grant, I need some acidified grapefruit juice. He'd be like, yep, no problem. I don't have to be like, hey, can you do 3 grams of citric acid and 1 like, I don't have to explain like the weird science to him. He just like, okay, yep, no problem. But like some of these other, some of the other competitors are like, I can't find my brand ambassador. I think he's got lost somewhere in traffic, and you're like, ugh. So yeah, we definitely have that little bit of advantage that Michael keeps us on the program for as long as we want to. Like, if any of us outgrow it or we want to like step into something else, like you're always a part of the family, but it's not like forced upon. It's just this lucky bonus of like, hell yeah, now I get to see my friends go through the same experience I went through, and I get to help them. Like this year's the first year I really got to help. Because, you know, being a global winner, you get to go in and judge. So I was judging, but at the same time, because it was virtually, both Jeff and I got to help James out and being like, dude, like, keep killing it. You're killing it. Like, be yourself. Calm down. Go for a walk. Yeah. Let's talk this out. Let's practice. You know, all that. Whereas, like, some of these competitors aren't as lucky. So
having the challenge be, like, done virtually, like, having us based in Toronto this year was, like, at first, I think everyone was kind of like, oh, we don't need to go to Madrid. But in the long run, it turned out, I feel like almost better. Like the fact that we had, you know, we'd go out for dinner in Toronto, and you know the whole team would go for dinner, and we'd be at a bar or restaurant, and like, the bar team at wherever we went would be like, we know who you are, we know why you're here, like you're gonna crush it, like good luck. And anytime we needed something late at night or like an ingredient, a spirit or something, Jess Milley, like all of our like close friend and the second place finisher for Canada nationally this year, her bar was like 3 blocks away, and we'd just be like, we need driver boots. She's like, sure, come get it.
And the hotel was all over us as well.
Oh yeah. They
knew exactly what was happening.
Having that home field advantage, I think, was very.
Grant, tell them the story about prepping Shay for his speed round that night. It's a great story.
Okay, so there's a lot of so there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that you probably don't happen, and there was one year Shane had to prep for a speed round he was really, really not comfortable for. In Miami, we're down in Miami now. I was just like, I'm gonna get you ready. I don't care what I've got to do. We're gonna stay up all night. I went through the back of the house at the hotel down in Miami, and I pulled out one of their kitchen stainless steel benches, and I built a bar in his hotel room with a full back bar and rail. And someone saw me carrying through like all these kitchen items, and like, what the hell was this?
Just fit in the elevator.
And I was jamming into the elevator. Shane came back to the room after resting, and there's a full bar set up. I was like, we're gonna stay up all night so you can nail this. And he was like, okay. So like, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to practice. He wouldn't have known like the setup of like, make sure my lemon juice is on the left so I can grab and have these 3 cocktails set up this way with this being on the right.
Poor housekeeping, you know. The next day, you see like somebody try to pull out this giant.
We had do not disturb on for a few days. But like, you know, that's what it took. So when you actually got there, it was like, oh, I feel comfortable now, because you just walk up and sit up to a bar and you're trying to put all the things. You're gonna make 8 drinks. You know, you can lose an item if you don't know where your simple syrup is, and that could throw off, you know, a bunch of cocktails. So, I mean, we've all kind of done it in different ways. But it was, I remember Sweet and Chili, who organized World Class, they came and knocked on the door on like the last year, like, Grant, we'll need our tables back. We're gonna put this kitchen back together.
So, do you think that there's going into 2022? You guys have started playing that 2022, how it's going to roll. Do any other countries, like we've talked about going to globals, do any other countries do nationals the way that we do? Because I know that you sort of go really, Michael, you go really deep into like, okay, what are the challenges from last year? Yep. What are the challenges for like possibly for next year? Because I know that sort of gets planned as it gets rolled out, and you try and mimic it as close as possible. Like obviously Whistler, 14 different locations, like that's just insane to try and like think about doing that many.
Yeah, I think this year at the national final we had 9 challenges, and the globals was 5.
Oh wow!
So we really push it for the national final, so that whoever it is as prepared as possible for the global experience.
We're like going through it today, and like literally as we're creating challenges, like I want to see somebody who's like, we don't have this in this challenge yet. We don't have something that's going to challenge this part of a bartender. I mean, it's just all about being prepared for sure, and like over preparing to that extent. Like I think so at some points I feel like our national challenges should be harder than the global, because we're at that point right now as a country.
I'm gonna say I've actually gone and like judged some of the like global national finals for other countries. So I've definitely seen some of them that are like not even close to what the 9 challenges that we end up doing or whatever in our nationals. But there's a few, like Mexico does like a really great job at doing different locations and like really heavily involved challenges. The US does a pretty good job at like how they kind of like map out their like national finals. So there's a few like countries that definitely do it, but then there's some where you're like, oh, this is like peanuts.
You're not getting set up for success.
Yeah.
So can you divulge anything from it? Oh, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, the cool way that some of the countries do it is they like group it together as well.
Mhm.
So like the Baltic states, for example, will like group it together for their challenges,
that's cool.
finals and stuff.
Same
So
with Spain and Portugal.
Portugal, yeah. So it's, I mean, I think the interesting thing is like every country's gonna do it differently. Our closest neighbor to the south does it like very differently than we do. I think.
Yeah, that competition is open.
Yeah, they just
Like the
started
website
applications. Yeah.
So can you divulge anything for next year?
Oh, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Okay,
Well,
so
can you
what
divulge
we-
anything for regionals?
So here's the plan. We obviously want to celebrate James winning, as well as hopefully everything reopening. So that's the reason we came here as a starting point. We are going to go across the country with studios, world-class studios, which will be in November and January. The website will open mid-November and be open till mid-January. There will be 2 regional finals, one in the east and one in the west. I can tell you the one in the west will be in Edmonton. Can't tell you the others, we haven't got the venues locked down. And then obviously national final. Can't tell you where that's going to be.
Comedic timing with this guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to process what I can and can't say because we haven't locked things
I
down.
can guarantee that you'll have to make a drink with Tangerine.
That's all I can say right
That's
now.
about it.
So, yeah, it's going to be pretty action-packed. We want to get out and see as many people as possible across the country, and that's really important. And have some fun while we do it. So, we're going to have some drinks tonight and some food and whatnot. So, and it's great to see all you guys here, and
Definitely.
brilliant to be back in Victoria. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So I'm going to finish it up because I want to get some questions and answers so I don't take up too much of you guys' time. Last question for all of you, and we'll start with Grant. Best piece of advice for first-time competitors?
Just go for it. Honestly, just be yourself. I think when I first went into it, I definitely went in as like a hotel style bartender because when I looked at all the previous winners out from the UK, and Eric Lorenz was very sharply dressed, and I thought, that's how I dress for work anyway in a hotel at the Fairmont office in Vancouver. So I kind of fit into that time. But I think when we look at now Kait and everyone walking around the room, I think if you try and be something that you're not, they will see straight through you. Like if you never wear a suit when you're bartending, don't wear a suit. If you have tattoos and your sleeves rolled up, just be you. Well, I mean, yeah,
This guy got off the plane yesterday with a suit.
Yeah, but just like be yourself.
It wasn't business class, let's say.
But yeah, that's it. Just don't be afraid to enter because I've learned so much from it. But also be yourself because that's what genuine hospitality is.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yep.
Authenticity is definitely key. And I don't know, if you can show like your genuine personality and like your authentic true self, that for me, when I'm judging a competition, that shines through more than at the end of the day, it's liquid in the glass. Yes, it has to be balanced. Yes, it has to be tasty. But if you give me the impression of like, damn, I really want to visit that person at their bar outside of this competition, or like, I can't wait to sit and like have a chat with this person and get them to make me a cocktail again. That to me is like the best. I love that. I even said that to James this year. He's like, you have any advice going into the finals? Like, just be yourself. And then I think you said, you're like, I actually finally was myself and I came out on top. And I was like, see, like, just you don't want to like mirror anybody else, but also practice what you do. So in a competition, if you're not used to using like a ice cloth when you're like putting ice into glasses or whatever, because like you don't want ice to touch and rip all over your hand. Start practicing those like small things. Of course, technique, you got to look at the points breakdown. So you always got to see like, okay, technique is worth 45 points. The drink's only worth 5. Okay, I got to brush up on my technical skills, and that might be, you know, the small, minute things of just keeping your area clean, wiping up in between, you know, pouring, like all that, like little tiny stuff. That's where the points kind of start to add up. But if you're authentically yourself, hands down for me, that always wins. That always wins.
Michael, you can put your 2 cents on this
no,
one.
I would say use it as an opportunity to broaden your network, get to know people across the country, get to know, you know, these guys. But Shawn, what did you get out of it in Montreal? And when are you coming back? What do you remember from the Montreal national final?
I'm retired, my friend. That's not going to happen. I do agree.
I see those minute cocktail videos you do.
Well, this is world class in under a minute.
The Minute Man. I don't know if that's a.
Not sure if I want to take that tag. No, I'm not going to take that.
That one out.
That one will not be a hashtag on TikTok anytime soon. For me, world class opened my eyes just to the pool of talent we have in Canada. I'm always lucky enough that I get to travel over the world and sit at people's bars and hang out. And did you just break something, Jeff?
No, did I?
No, you're good.
Okay.
And get to sit and experience bartenders at bars all over the world. But like it was great seeing other bartenders, friends, and people who I'm now friends with, like compete, and it was an intense competition. It was like even the regionals in Vancouver was intense, and then nationals just took it to a whole different level. So Chris, piece of advice for everybody?
Yeah, especially for people entering the first time. It is a competition, but it's not like a foot race. You're not really competing against other people. I don't think that's the best way to look at it. It's a celebration, really. There aren't any other professions that have celebrations like this, like what World Class puts on. So to be able to be involved in that and just to absorb everything that's going on, both for your personal growth and for your networking, I think you're going to get far more out of it than if you go in narrow-sighted thinking it's only a competition and you start over-analyzing everything, stressing out, not talking to people, not eating. It really is something that you should, enjoy, but celebrate. You're here, and it's a really cool experience that not everyone gets to partake in. So it's treat it as something it's a special because it really is.
And take it one step at a time. Don't freak out about the national final before you start. One step at a time.
And just before I go to James, like I looked at every challenge like a chit. And that's like people ask me how I do my busy schedule and stuff like that. Like it's a chit. You get a chit up, and I apply just being a bartender to my everyday life. You get a chit, look at the chit, you see what you need to do, you know how to do it, you put it through, and then you get another printer. Another chit comes up, then you hit that chit. And then you just tag them all the way along. If you had 10 chits up and you were just going back and forth between all the chits, you would crash your face off pretty quickly behind the bar. So that's how I took all the challenges, just challenge by challenge by challenge by challenge. And you're gonna, just like behind the bar, you're gonna fuck up a drink. I can swear it's my podcast. You're gonna fuck up a drink, but the next chit you're gonna nail it, and the next chit you're gonna nail it, and so on and so forth. It's 1 out of every 10. Mr. Grant.
If you don't win on your first try, we can't all be Kait. It's like, don't get discouraged. Like, so much more will come out of doing world class than the potential of winning it. I had to do world class 5 times before I won the national final, and then was lucky enough to get it done at global finals. But every year I did it, opportunities came out of it, relationships, friendships, they all came out of that.
A few tears here and there.
Every year, I think, yeah. But I mean, Lauren, our colleague, she puts it very, very clearly, you don't have to win world class to win world class. Like, she didn't win the global final, and now she represents world class at the global level. The other thing I would say is, don't go over time. It's like the easiest thing not to do, just like, don't go over time.
I'm honestly shook that none of these fine individuals said to read the rules. Like, read the rules.
I think we're just exhausted.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely part of it. And honestly, it is about finding your authenticity and where your hospitality lies. finding out how the spirits speak to you and earnestly going in that direction. But I mean, I said this to James like many times. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy the moment. We get a little poetic for a second, but there's a Japanese saying, "Ichigo Ichie." Everyone's heard it before, but it kind of translates into we will never be here again. And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment in its melancholia, perhaps. But we have this beautiful chance as bartenders in Canada to not only step behind a bar and serve people and be a part of their lives without actually being in it, and finding a way to extend that into world class on a global level. Remember, you are in this. It's like a really fun and really challenging and really dynamic experience that you will never be in again in the case of somebody like global winners here. So I guess it's just finding those moments to enjoy. Lauren told me that when I was going through it, I would have memory lapses and not remember some elements to it until 6 months later, so like 8 months later. And it's true. I come back and I think about I think about those moments that I told you about, or even afterwards when a few of us went to Isla and skinny dipped in the sea. I'll think about that for the rest of my life. I kind of forgot about it until 6 months ago.
I forgot about it till now, but thank you. Thank you for reminding me
I
of
would
that.
like to forget that visual.
Back to the therapist. Thank you so much, guys. This was really fun. Guys, let's open up the floor. Anyone got any questions? And you can ask anything.
Uh-oh.
Dun, dun,
Come on,
dun.
Kate.
Uh-oh.
Looks like you got a
Called out.
question.
Yep.
Okay.
Go.
You were talking about earlier how you had a cocktail that you kind of got inspiration by Canadian bartenders.
Mhm.
For everyone else on the floor, is there any particular cocktail from a challenge that just kind of stuck with you inspiration wise?
For me, yeah, I think I'll start. Why not? It was actually a challenge I won as well. I liked a lot of my. We had to do a written word challenge, and we had to do. It was 2 cocktails inspired by literature, and that was all it said. That was the rules. It could have been something written in a book, it could have been the Bible, it could have been words from a movie, it could have been anything that's been written down. And my initial entry video, I dressed up as Ernest Hemingway with my cocktail and I had to drink inspired by him. So I found it natural that when I got to the global final for my entry submission, that I was like, well, I'm going to do this. And I did 2 cocktails inspired by his life. He was dressed as a girl when he was a kid. I don't know if many people knew that because his mum, when you're that age, you dress him as the gender they want, was really strange. But so he was young and feminine at a young age. So I did a champagne cocktail style, but it was actually dressed up as a martini. So it was a bold character coming out of a young feminine appearance. And it was like a really rugged cocktail at the end. And I did it inspired by the start of his life. And it was something from the start of my journey of the competition till the end of it. So it was kind of really tight and really well with me.
Love it. It's hard to pick just one. You end up doing so many.
Did you
I
put
mean-
Drake on more than one cocktail?
No, I only put Drake on one cocktail.
This speedrun was
Like a
pretty amazing.
mini Drake figurine that I served on one of my cocktails. I would say there's probably 2. So my entry drink, even just to enter into World Class Canada, that I like that challenge because it puts everybody on an even playing field. There's no homemade ingredients, just stuff you can buy at the grocery store. So you really have to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and get into okay, what can I do with everyday stuff that's going to make me stand out? And I did, I think it was called the Matriarch, and I did a cocktail kind of based around my grandmother who had dementia. So I did a green tea Ciroc coconut cocktail because matcha and coconut are really good for your brain health and memory, and because she didn't have any memories anymore, it was just this way of listen, I'm your keeper of your memories. So that was my first cocktail entering in. And then there was a cocktail I did at the global finals. It was based off of a cobbler, and I forgot my knife behind my station, and I needed to cut up some lemon wedges to muddle in for this cobbler. And so I was doing my presentation, and I had Eric Laurent, I had Tash Conte, and oh gosh, can't remember who the third judge was. But
those who don't know Eric Williams is the head bartender for extremely polished, extremely technical. You've never seen him use his hands for anything. That was the judge.
So I'm like doing my spiel, and I didn't stop, and I was just like, didn't skip a beat, and I took my lemon that I needed to cut and literally like ripped it in half with my hands. To this day, I still can't do it again, so it was like pure adrenaline of like, I need to put acid in this cocktail. There's no other way. And so I just was like, yeah, totally, grabbed it, like hand squeeze it in there, like that's what I wanted to do. Anyway, served the cocktail, and I guess the cobbler is one of Eric's like favorite cocktails. He's like, I love cobblers. And he like pulled me aside after, and he was like, did you forget your knife? And I was like, yes. He's like, honestly, he's like, that's the best thing I've seen all competition. The fact that you didn't skip a beat, just as if you were behind your own bar talking to a guest, and you didn't let it distract you or what you're doing in the competition. You didn't let the other judges didn't know. The only reason why I caught it is because I was sitting closest to you and I could see behind your station. So for me, I was like, hell yeah, like that's, you just roll with the punches, you know, like you said, dealing with a chit one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get a Ramos thrown in there and you're like, son of a bitch. But, you know, you roll with it. So that was my like memorable cocktail, literally ripping a lemon in half and like having to hand squeeze my lemon into my cobbler.
Don't recommend that in COVID. Though.
No. I was like,
Mr. Enns.
Yeah, I guess one of my favorite moments, I got to know the historian for Tanqueray and single malts over the last little while. So we made a drink for her, but before the competition I had, I think it would have been you or Lauren, get Joanne McKercher to make sure she's in the crowd, planted in. And then at the end of the presentation, getting her on stage to say, this is, you know, your cocktail, we made it inspired by you, please take the first sip of it as well.
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of fun, just making sure we had the people planted in, and yeah, it was.
But I love the reason of what it was called. So her name is Joanne, and you're like, she's a historian, just like Indiana Jones.
Archivist, searching through the history of the old recipe books. So it was Indiana Joe, which was your little nod.
Yeah, I like that.
What was in it?
Tang Tan, some elderflower, Peychaud's, and I honestly don't remember the other ingredients.
Something delicious.
You remember 6 months.
It blends. I remember the moment. I don't remember what was in it.
Mr.
It's
Grant.
written down somewhere.
I'm kind of like Kate. I have two that really stand out to me. The first is the first cocktail I ever submitted as a qualifying drink. I still remember very vividly, like standing behind my bar talking to a coworker and like, oh, I could do this or this, and he looked at me and he's like, you should just do vodka. No one's gonna do vodka. So I submitted this Kettle One martini that, you know, when I look at it in retrospect now, it's very indicative of the way that I make cocktails still. Wait, you can guess what's in it, don't worry about it.
There's got to be some sort of sherry in there.
There's sherry.
There's a tropical element in there, a surprising tropical.
It's, yeah, a little bit of sweetness, sure. And the other is the signature serve from the national finals in Montreal in 2018, which, you know, I think I had Kate, Grant, and Shane as my judges, and I made a punch. I made a full punch bowl, and, you know, I finished preparing it, and I, you know, brought the punch over, and I came out from behind the bar and put it down on your guys' bar, and I made a glass for myself. And I remember thinking that because I batched it, it didn't take very long, and I said to you guys that, you know, if this is my last moment, because we were about to make the cut before going into the final four, I was like, if this is the last chance that I have to engage with you guys, I want to spend time in this moment and just have us do what punch is supposed to do, which is share a drink together and have a moment where we're just like enjoying each other's company, and like that expression of hospitality and the joy of what we do. And to me is something that I try to carry forward year after year, which is that realization that, you know, it is a competition, but ultimately the judges are your guests, and you want to like treat them that way. And it's what we do every night behind the bar anyways. It's you know, we provide drinks and hospitality and comfort to one another, and yeah.
Speaking of providing drinks.
Yeah, and so those two drinks really stand out to me a lot as being, I think, the first time I like honestly expressed my style of hospitality.
I'm gonna say two, and one of them is the one that you brought up. and they're kind of the same story, I suppose. But the first one was a series of drinks, I guess, for the national finals up in Whistler. The challenge was about the spirit of the mountains. Create a drink with either Johnny Walker or Zacapa. But it was very vague in the way it was described, so I made 3 drinks, and kind of each one was a different element of spending a day on the mountain or a hike, some kind of thing. But what I really liked about it, aside from I think the drinks were all really delicious, but aside from that, I collaborated with my now partner through that, and she like helped me sculpt this mountain that all my drinks were served on in different places, the elevations, different places on the hike that I would say this is where you would want to enjoy this. And that was really invaluable to me then, and obviously it still is, just having a partner that you can bounce things back and forth on, whether romantically linked or otherwise. I'm really lucky that they're very artistically talented. So moving forward into the Singleton Challenge, which the challenge was essentially, it read very simply, Singleton, two different serves. The first one was to create a cocktail using only 3 ingredients, one that you could make and one that you had to be like store purchased or regularly available. So speaking back to like, tasting the hero ingredient, let it speak to you. What I got from Singleton was coconuts, apricots, baking spices. So I made this like variation on a Reynolds syrup or something like that. It's called a Savage Spice Mix, ? But it was spices, apricot, coconut, and then lime juice. I made like a tiki style cocktail. But the reason why it connects back to Canada and connects to who I feel like we are on the global stage is I did a little bit of research, found out like most people who have the same complexion as me, I have a little bit of Scottish in my blood. My family has a tartan, and so we built a tiki mug and added that tartan to it. And the whole storyline was about, me as a Canadian bartender starting out in a small market, not having my tribe, so to speak, and finding that throughout Canadian bartending and throughout going across Canada and feeling the love and warmth of other people's fires. And so that was the first cocktail. And the second little bit, real quick, was the second serve was to serve the spirit by itself, and then 2 different elements to it to adjudicate. So I made a fire starter out of the remnants of the spice mix, lit that, and as it burned, you could smell what the whiskey would smell like, essentially, in my mind. And then I made a marshmallow out of duck fat. And
that was so good.
It was very delicious. Duck fat with some of the baking spices in it. And like the third part of that serve was the camaraderie that you felt as I served it to the judges, which one of them was Kait, the other was Dave Broom, around that fire. And just like that warmth of fire and how important that is. I found my tribe with Canada and in Canadian bartending, but then also to find the reason to pull people back into that once you found your tribe.
Getting to roast marshmallows with Dave Broom is probably one of like the highlights of my life.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Dave Broom is, he's like an insanely knowledgeable like whiskey historian / everything else. So like getting to sit by him, like roast marshmallows, instead of like getting stuck in his mustache, drinking some whiskey, I'm like, this is really cool. And it was Jeff, and I was like, this is also really cool. This is my Canadian boy.
Yeah, I sat with him at Canadian Whiskey Festival Awards a couple of years ago, and the Canadian Whiskey Awards are very dry. It's very, very dry. And so we were betting, like, who do you think's going to come in the next one? And doing shots or whoever lost. So you know what, because I know it's getting on 5 o'clock, I'm going to wrap up the podcast for this, guys. You're actually drinking the Stanley Park from the lovely Chris Enns. Everybody give Harry a big thumbs up because the kid's been behind the bar shaking all the drinks. I've been asking way too much of my staff the last 3 days, if anyone was here on Sunday. So we are going to hang out for a little bit longer. Well, these guys are going to hang out. I'm going to hop behind the bar and help Harry. So if you've got any questions, you're quite welcome to mingle. We're probably going to still have the cheese and meat sitting on table 7 there. So just hang out in the back here. and then grab some more cheese and meat. We got one more cocktail to come up. That's Mr. James Grant's, and we are fucking serving it because I had to prep it today, and it wasn't easy.
It was pretty easy.
That's easy.
Do you guys like the Lagavulin white chocolate?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I need a crock pot now.
That's actually a drink that they serve at the Lagavulin distillery. I think it was really cool because myself, Chris, and Jeff went there after Jeff's year. So we went across the distillery and it was just in the little back room of the distillery. They served hot white chocolate.
In an attic, basically.
It was up in an attic in the back of the distillery. It was,
Little 3-4 seat bar,
Yeah.
some nice couches, tasting room below.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, guys. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Sean.
Thank you, Sean. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Great to see you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.